I know you don't want to hear this, but car companies around the world earn the majority of their money selling you these. A painful truth for folks like you and I that want more of these. So how is it even possible that a small group of people inside these car companies can make an affordable performance car a reality? So it has been, I'd say, about 10 years that I have been throwing you under the bus in Hyundai episodes, because you are the guy that is responsible for us getting a mismatch of things. People that want manual transmissions can't have sunroofs, and people that want automatics without a sunroof, they can't have that, and you are responsible.
Part of the equation, yes.
I'm blaming you.
Yes, I know you always have been.
But the thing that I don't tell people, because I don't want to go out of my way to be nice to you, you're kind of like an unsung hero in the Hyundai world, because cars like this exist in part because of you. That is the truth, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to understand is how in today's day and age, where if it ain't an SUV and boring, they won't build it, how do you get a car like this, or the Sonata N line, or the Ioniq 5N built?
It's based on a core car. The standard car is the Elantra, and you've got volume in that. So your platform is there, and then you can kind of build off of that. When we originally started talking about, and I've been working on N since 2014, and Veloster N was the first one. And when I first heard about it, there was discussion about it between us and Korea, and they literally wanted to go after the GTI was kind of the benchmark. And back in my mind, I'm like, that was like the Mark 7.5 GTI time then. I mean, that's a hell of a car. That's quite the benchmark to obtain. But the discussions were there, and we started talking about it. And that's based on a smaller volume car, but they wanted to try something first to get the brand out there and to get it established. i30N in Europe, of course, came first. So there's some commonization between the parts. That 2-liter engine was in the i30N, was in the Veloster N. Kind of a little bit of update, to go into the Elantra N, but a lot of those same parts just kind of keep moving from, one generation to the next, whether it be the diff, the suspension, and they're based on and built into higher volume vehicles that take the majority of, the expense and everything else. And so this is kind of done off to the side, still on the production line, still, goes through all the same processes. It is treated like, from a program perspective, it is different. It's on its own timeline. You'll notice production started on this about a year after the base car was launched. So it kind of goes through its own stages, so to speak. There's about 4 or 5 stages we got to go through. But the majority of the heavy lifting is done by the standard car.
So let's go up the food chain a bit. With the case of N, because you've been at Hyundai for a long time. How many years now?
12, 13 years now, yeah.
So who really started the ball rolling for just N, whether it's this or the i30, which I believe was the first one?
i30 was the first one, known as Elantra GT here in the United States. We've always got a lot of questions about bringing that car over. That's another topic, another time. But N really did start in Korea. It started over there, and they started talking with us early on in the beginning. And I think with the hiring of Albert Biermann, that was really got the ball rolling.
Let's be clear.
Yes.
Did Albert Biermann come from BMW and say, I want to make something that is a Korean GTI, or was the germination of the idea, did it predate Albert coming and they said, we need Albert?
I think it predated Albert, but they knew he was the right guy to make it happen. So it was kind of the combination, bringing everybody together. Albert brought in some amazing, other talent as well from other, manufacturers. I remember the first ride and drive I went to, for Veloster, and we go around the room and introduce ourselves, and just, the amount of European influence where they had been at other manufacturers, whether it be, Mercedes or Lotus or what. He really brought a core team that are still, involved, whether it be at HMETC, which is the tech center at the Nürburgring. So there's a lot of that talent and a lot of those, and they work together. They work with the Korean staff and everybody. The amount of, just in the last, 10 years or so, which I've been involved with N, the level of enthusiasm for motorsport, for driving dynamics in general, has increased tremendously. And I think a lot of that, comes from Bierman, the staff, and everybody working together and learning, what makes these cars perform and how to make them move.
So let's go back to that decision process before Albert Bierman came. And I don't know if you had the visibility at that point, but was it a decision based on, here's the business line that we think can make a lot of money because it's a higher profit in a car we're already building, or was it, we want a calling card, we want a vanity project, we want a halo car in an inexpensive brand?
And I think a lot of it also stemmed around, I think quite frankly, some of the criticisms of the brand were from dynamics. Very early on, steering,
let's be honest,
steering, suspension. So they knew that, to make an impact, and I've always believed that, when you attract the enthusiasts, people that understand cars, the word of mouth, and that, that what the level that can generate is very powerful, more so than, a lot of the marketing campaigns. It's all about, word of mouth, especially with something like this. So I think the best way to kind of fix that or address some of the perceived shortcomings, was to produce, a high performance, vehicle, and then Bierman and his team, we all worked together, and then the rest is kind of history. It's just been growing ever since, and we understand that, it's very important. And with these vehicles, we attract customers that would never have considered Hyundai. And that is one of the key things, and it's hard to quantify, but that's, and those people have families. They need an SUV at some point as well. So there's that story and that narrative too. But I think to appeal to the enthusiast who understands cars, would have never considered a Hyundai in the past, and to put them behind the wheel and make them owners, I think it goes a tremendously long way for the brand in general.
That brings us to a business case. If you think about it, any business, whether it's airplanes, airlines, cars, or hotels, there's a certain point that someone says, okay, we're going to invest in this business unit for 3 years until we decide that if it doesn't turn a profit, we're going to shut it down. Was a decision like that taken for N inside of Hyundai at that point? Did they say, we're doing this, we're going to fund it for 5 years, and if it doesn't do anything, we're shutting it down?
I mean, I'm sure there were some, stages along the way or criteria that it had to meet, but I think they were playing the long game. They understood that to kind of change the perception, to change the reputation of the dynamics, you were playing that long game, and it's not going to happen overnight, and it hasn't, but it has taken time, and that translates into the Genesis products, as well. So it benefits the brand in general.
That's generally the strategic advantage of Hyundai Kia Group. There's two things, at least from the outsider's point of view, and someone who runs a business. Number one, you guys think in generations, you don't think in terms of quarterly profits. And number two, and I think this is the biggest competitive advantage you guys have, is there's a speed at the way you work.
Hyundai speed.
It's ridiculous. And this is coming from a guy who worked in tech for 15 years. So like my old boss, who everybody has heard of, there was a speed at which Steve worked at. You guys are close to that.
Yeah.
And that's a highly unusual in the car world.
Yeah.
But even with that speed and the longevity that people look at things at, what like roadblocks do you have in trying to build a car like this? Like what group says to you, no, you can't, or this is a dumb idea?
There's always quality, quality division. And we have to work with them because, there are certain standards, certain criteria that a vehicle has to meet, and this will meet that. But, there might be some, and I'm trying to think of an example, but, there's the exhaust is one thing, that's from a traditional quality perspective, you'd want it as quiet as possible, as isolated as possible, and we have to work with them and get them to understand that, no, it's about engagement. You want to feel that, you want to hear that. I can't believe how many times I've heard, Bierman talk about, that's your reference point on the track. And he's, trained and taught everybody to understand that, so that kind of permeates throughout the organization. But for many, it's counterintuitive to what they think it should be, and you just have to kind of convince them and tell them that it's going to be fine, it's going to be well accepted by enthusiasts because that's what they want.
So that brings up an unusual point. I remember when I first drove this car on the track in 2021. You did the drive, or 22, because it was a 22 model year car.
Sonoma.
And Albert made a huge stink about the brakes are in-house. We didn't go to Brembo. And you know me, I am as cheap as the day is long. And his logic was like, if you're going to take the thing to the track, and if we had done Brembo, you would have paid 3 times as much for the brake, the parts, every time you use it on a weekend. That was his logic. And I don't know if he was just speaking to me as a cheapskate, but did that come from some of the pushback he got inside the company? Like, was that the QA people, or was it really, we want to keep the replacement cost lower?
Yeah, I mean, it's about replacement cost, but it's actually, because everything, it's all about material costs, and it all, works into the price of the vehicle, and we wanted to keep this obtainable. There was, a very, Veloster N came in under 30,000 originally when it launched, or that was kind of the target. So all that factors in, and if you've got brakes and hardware from a larger vehicle that can accommodate this, and perform the way it is, yes, there's changes to pad compound. And I remember getting emails from quality and from our service and like, hey, there's possibility for increased brake dust, increased noise. That's going to be an issue. It's like people, this type of buyer, this small, in the world of Hyundai, it's a small percentage what these end products are, in general. But basically, and they understood everybody has to kind of sing from the same sheet of music and understand that this is the customer we're going for, and this is what they want.
I think we have a teaching moment here. The audience, I always ask for feedback at the end of the episodes, and half the audience understands certain things are unrealistic, half doesn't. So let's take some numbers here. How many Elantras do you sell in the U.S. a year? Just
over
ballpark.
Over 100,000.
Over 100,000.
Yeah.
What percentage of that is annual?
Less than 5.
Okay, so this answers the question of why we can't have a brown diesel station wagon, or why we don't have a 2-door convertible and with all sorts of like 500 horsepower. Yeah. That's the answer.
Yeah, and also back to your original about the sunroof. We want to make it as simplified as possible. The complexity, we work very hard on our trim strategy, the trims being the different grades. If you have an optional sunroof that just kind of hangs out there as a standalone option, we wanted, and I was really big on this in the beginning, is just pick your color, pick your transmission, and that's it. The car comes the way it is, fully loaded. The Bose audio and everything, you've experienced it. So you want to make it simple for the customer, simple for the dealers to get their allocation and to inventory and to stock, to make it as simple as possible.
What you guys don't know behind the scenes, this is one of my cigar buddies. I love this man. I've known him for years. He's got an amazing story how he met his wife, by the way. She picked out those socks. However, this man is lying to you. He needs to give you a sunroof and the manual transmission. Make sure you say that in the comments, because I want to prove to him that he's wrong. You're wrong. That's just the bottom line.
As an enthusiast, I still strongly believe, the weight is the enemy, and putting it that up high, and we've had this discussion
But you just
before.
said this is a practical, affordable car. I'm using it instead of a Honda Accord. I want to open up the sunroof. Yeah. I live in California. Give me that option. Anyway, Let's press on.
Yes.
So some of the things that didn't make it, like the brakes, I think is a big deal. The fact that I don't have to pay as much for a caliper or a rotor or a pad. What's an idea that was floated in the development of this, the Veloster N or the i30, that QA or design said, no, you can't have it?
Well, and the seat comes to mind, because obviously you talk about Recaro or one of the suppliers for.
Is that a Recaro seat?
It is not. Nope.
Oh, it's not.
Nope.
I lied in a couple of episodes.
Yeah. No, and it's we were just having that discussion on the way here about the seat. I think it's very comfortable, and it does the job well, but it's it's basically all in-house for the most part. I mean, from our suppliers, but it's not a branded or not a Recaro seat or anything to that effect. It's.
So I got to point something out and kind of bring two families, just like the Hatfields and the McCoys, together. The only other car company that I know of that makes a performance seat that they build in-house is, take a guess, BMW. And it's a very polarizing seat. It's the one where it's got the holder for your gram.
Oh yeah.
I love
the heart. Yeah.
But if if you're a larger man, it's a problem. But I love the look of the seat. I love that it's built out of like carbon fiber, and I think it makes the interior of the current generation M3, M4. I don't think it's a coincidence that you and BMW are the only two to do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, our suppliers, but I mean, and we, they looked at Recaro. That was part of the discussions. It's kind of the same principle as the brakes. It's all, the material cost all factors into this, and it's like scope creep. It just everything starts to add up, and
That's why it's not 50 grand. That's why it's not like a Golf R is 50 grand now.
Yeah.
So is there something else put aside the seats? Because you basically hacked the system. You still got the seat. It's just you made it at home. It's like you'd nag your mother, like, I want to go to McDonald's, I want to go to McDonald's. She goes, no, I'll make you a better burger. And it was a better burger, but you wanted to go to McDonald's. So you got the big sloppy hamburger is what you got. What's the one thing like you didn't get? There was something you wanted and you didn't get.
Basically, everything was pretty much true to concept and true to form. There's been little variations here and there, but honestly, there's nothing that I can think of that was a stretch or was a reach that we weren't able to deliver one way or another.
Was that a function of like, this is like heavy, like high up management was behind it, or was that a function of Albert, he makes you an offer you can't refuse?
There was a lot of support, and Albert has a lot, or had still, he's still consulting and whatnot. But he had the ear of a lot of people, and that goes a long way. The wheels are not, they're our own suppliers, but they're not branded. Any of the others.
No Ray's engineering.
No, no Ray's, no BBS. No, I've now mentioned 2 companies that are a little in difficulty.
What is Albert's official role now? 'Cause I know he's not day to day either on the Hyundai or Kia side. What is he doing?
It's
now?
my understanding he's still a consultant, and it's not you hear the term like a window seat or whatever. It's just it's purely ceremonial or whatnot. But no, he is at ride and drive events, evaluations. He still gives feedback. But the time he spent on the day to day until has come into to work on to support the business side of it as well, and at that background, a lot of his involvement has stuck, and a lot of the June is another one I think you talked to on one of our recent.
He's an interesting character. He had cigars with us.
Yeah,
fascinating guy.
Yeah, he is definitely. So I think he's kind of taken on a lot of the. Within Hyundai and within the ranks, really pushing, for what we need, and he understands. And you need somebody like that,
June's an interesting character. Like Albert is kind of restrained, but June, like I've been to a lot of car events. I've never seen a guy who runs a business want to drift his own car to the point where he rips up the tires. I mean, that's eating your own dog food.
Well, and he enjoys it, and he can do that.
Yeah.
It shows that he can get behind the wheel. He does it. He's got that passion, and I think that's the key. I have that passion. He has that passion. Anybody who works on this project, they share a little bit of that passion, and they want to bring it to market.
So let's go up a little bit more expensive. So obviously the i30 was first in a market that knew GTIs, hot hatches, is willing to pay for it. I'm a big believer that Europe, they buy things by the ounce, not by the pound. And then you imported it over here with the Elantra N, which I'm assuming did sell a lot.
The potential from a body style perspective, we knew that Elantra had more potential, being a 4-door sedan than the 3-door hatch or 4-door hatch, however you want to define it. But that was a unique calling card of Veloster, was the door on one side.
So why did you go with the car you knew wouldn't sell that well as first?
I think Veloster was a very important program within Hyundai, the first generation. The N version didn't come until the second generation. The US, it was just before I started. When I started at Hyundai, I kind of started right when the first generation Veloster Turbo launched, so I was part of that launch. But I wasn't necessarily part of the original the incubation period for Veloster, but that was a very important car for us, and they knew that it was a sporty car, and they wanted to going into the next generation, they wanted to take it that much higher level, and so that made a perfect marriage between the N brand.
It almost seems counterintuitive. You think if you're trying to prove the business case of a performance division, you'd want to do it on the volume car.
It is the Veloster was always our reverse halo. So to attract people to the brand, the younger buyer, into the family, you start, it is a reverse halo. It's one that's attainable. Don't you want a car that, you can easily afford as opposed to one you have to save up for, or.
I guess in thinking out loud, that really does prove the point of you're thinking generational. Because every other car company would have done this first. Kind of like Volkswagen. They're the ones that had to do the heavy lifting because no one else did a hot hatch before them. And they said, hey, we already sell the crap out of these things. Let's put a better engine and better brakes in it. And they took 20 years to prove the concept with them.
Well, and I think with Veloster too, you had a smaller vehicle, it was lighter weight, not a tremendous. Actually, the difference in weight is only like 50 pounds if you look at the curb weights. But it was shorter wheelbase. It was a little bit more, wasn't as refined as this. It had its tendencies, but I think just from a standpoint of the dimensions of the car, it made sense to apply it to something like that first, and then what you learn from that you can apply it to something a little bit more mainstream, and then grow the brand.
So when did they approve the idea of doing this in the U.S. on an Elantra?
We were already talking about this It was shortly after. It was about the same time that this generation of Elantra was in its infancy. It was basically discussed that we'll do an N version as well.
And whether it's N or not, how long is your product cycle to develop a car?
3-4 years or so, roughly.
So it is still 3-4 years, okay. And then you did this. Is the calculus, the algebra different when you apply this logic to a Sonata?
The principle is the same, but I think, at least to me, then you're getting in another size of car. So you're getting in a Sonata N line is a perfect example. I think that's a perfect car, program, or platform for an N line. Not necessarily as much so for an N because of the weight, because of the size, because of everything else. I mean, you want everything.
What does that mean, N line versus N? Because obviously the Germans do this as well, and I find it very confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the N line is not, and then we even have a little bit of variance between the N lines within the lineup ourselves. So I can understand where some of that confusion can come from. But the N line is basically, it's like a pyramid, and I talk about reverse halos, but reverse that, and it's just your normal pyramid. You start with the base car, then you have your N line, then you have your N, and then the higher spec, supercar, halo, and then motorsports to that. So that's kind of how it's always been envisioned. So N line is your one step up from standard, but not quite all the way to N. So from a price positioning standpoint, it sits in between the two. It is a little, even these are very accessible, I think, from a price standpoint. But N line is even a little bit more. So a little bit more of the look, less of the hardcore performance hardware that you can't see under the skin, to keep that price point in check, but you still have the look of the vehicle.
Was there a discussion inside of Hyundai saying, okay, we're going to try this N line. If it sells, then we'll come out with some ridiculous AMG fighter with a Sonata? Was that ever the strategy, or was it like, no, this is enough?
It may have been discussed. I wasn't a part of it, but I think we understand that we can take something like this because we have the other brands that there's Genesis as well that kind of operates in that space. So you got to maximize what you have, at your obtainable levels.
Can we take this opportunity to throw Trevor under the bus a little bit?
By all means.
Okay, so what you guys don't know, his counterpart used to be at Hyundai, did the Kona N. He was a product manager on that car. He now is the big product manager boss at the 80 and 90 series over at Genesis. That Magma name, terrible. I love you guys, but you got to get rid of that name. N-line sounds cool. I like the Namyang thing, the connection. Very Germanic, but Magma, it doesn't work. I have these weird connotations of eruptions, and I don't think that's what you're looking for.
No.
So Trevor changed that.
No, but I think they wanted something that stands out, and it kind of goes along with the color scheme that they used.
Oh, it stands out.
And and quite frankly, Genesis, they are separated. I mean, there's not a lot across, at least from the distributor side, the marketing side.
Yeah.
It is separate. So what they do and what I do, we do it our own way.
So let's switch gears very drastically at this point. How do you apply this logic when it comes to the EV world? Because you guys, I got to tell you, I thought it was a gimmick, but God, man, that thing works, and it works.
It works
well.
good, huh?
It works incredibly well.
Yeah. Even when I heard about the electrification of N, and I knew the weight, and that was going to be a huge challenge. EVs are fast in a straight line, but to make them handle and to make them fun, that's a whole nother story. It kind of reminds me back when we talked about the first Veloster N. How are we going to make this benchmark of GTI? That's almost unobtainable. So how are you going to make an EV fun and engaging? And you and I both, we love our engaging cars, and we know what it takes. And I'll be damned if it took a little time, took trial and error, a lot of work, and a lot of the engineers, both in Namyang and in Germany, worked feverishly on this program, and it got to a point where it is an engaging, fun to drive vehicle.
Who came up with the idea of, I know it's electric, but we're going to put in fake gears and make it sound like a gas car.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It primarily from Korea, because I think they did want that engagement level, and I think we supported that as well.
Was Bierman still day to day at that point?
Bierman
He was like, we need that so we can hear it.
Yeah.
So Bierman was a big proponent of that.
Yeah. Because he always says, while when you're on a track and you have a helmet on, sometimes your windows have to be up at certain tracks. You get cut off from that experience, and you get lost a little bit. And then multiply that times 10 with an EV with you're totally isolated. But now you're pulling speeds to the next corner, double what you could do on some ice cars. So you really need that reference point, and I think everybody who's experienced it on track. It gives you that reference point, not only audible, but just even the feeling of the torque build. And as you let off, you get the back, the pull back of the torque decel. It really keeps you where you need to be.
Was there
track.
more pushback from like the naysayers inside of the company that were like, okay, on an EV we can't do this? Was there an example of something you wanted you couldn't?
Yeah, because everybody knows the most efficient way for an EV is single gear. It's just one gear, no sound. It's totally counterintuitive to what an EV has been to up until now, for the most part. But the N operates a little bit on their own, and it's a percent of the larger Ioniq 5 family.
What are the numbers there? Like, how many Ioniq 5s do you sell a year?
What are we doing? Like, where are we at? 25,000 so far year to date. I think roughly. So you can check me on that. But
would it be 5% or even 5% of that? For the...
Yeah. So
So we're talking really low. We're talking like it's more rare than a GT3.
It helps the Ioniq 5N, the Ioniq 5 itself, the whole family. It helps electrification, because now we can not only, I think we've shown that we can make efficient, the Ioniq 6 with its range and its aerodynamics. So we know how to make efficient and good, well-built, EVs, but now we can make them fun too. You can have both.
So is there movement afoot to take electrification, not EV, electrification, and put it in stuff like this? You know how like Mercedes with their C43, they've got an electric motor that pre-spools the turbo. Or you even have it too.
Yeah.
You do it
the
in
42 volt, the supercharge.
Yeah, that's what Trevor does. It actually works pretty well
on the Genesis side. And then Porsche just now with their, the 911S.
Yeah.
With the.
Well, they do two electric motors in the transmission and the turbo.
Right.
Are you thinking about doing anything here with that?
I can't talk about future stuff, but it all costs something, and you need, obtainable price points are always, one of the main targets, to make sure it's achievable and the people can afford it and enjoy it.
You probably have seen many car manufacturers make these blanket statements. We're going all EV by 2035 or 2030. Did you guys ever say that for N?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, let me give you a little feedback on my end. Don't make a blanket statement like that. Don't do that. This is all about affordable performance. This is where I agree with you. And EV's nowhere near that. I mean, I don't want to get into a political or culture war discussion, but there are so many other things that need to be sorted out. Let other people deal with that.
Beyond the scope of this conversation.
And let's keep these affordable, because at the end of the day, the value of these things is all about, this is a $35,000 performance car. And I learned something. So I shot a Living With episode with this very car here. Something I didn't realize, and I don't know if you realize this. If I were to say GTI or Elantra, which one has better resale value?
Elantra.
By a lot. By 5%. The resale value on your car is 5% higher to a comparable GTI. Golf R is a little bit higher, but the Golf R is a rarer car. To put that aside. Yeah. I was shocked. I think that's a reliability thing. I think there's a perception of quality with the Volkswagen. But the learning for me was, effectively, it's a 2-year-old car. I don't think anybody knew about N before this one came out, because this was the volume car. And now the market is saying, you know what? We're going to do with this.
Yeah.
Are you getting any learning in terms of maintenance, or has there been issues that kind of came back? I know there was a tuning with the dual clutch transmission. There was a knock sensor. Was there anything else you learned from putting a high-strung engine into an Elantra?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that really spikes or anything on the grass as far as anything that's from a reliability standpoint. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, they've been designed for, I mean, there's 3 pillars. There's, racetrack capability is one of them, everyday sports car. And so these pillars are just kind of built into it for the reliability, because it's the 2-liter turbo, but it shares a lot of the componentry with other engines in the lineup and
Does it
whatnot.
still have the same 10-year warranty?
Yeah.
So I guess this brings our conversation full circle. It's really the combination of parts that enables you to A, make the car affordably, and B, warranty it. Is that a correct assumption?
I would say so. I mean, and the warranty's been very important to us. We've had it since, I don't know when exactly it launched, but I know it's been 15, 20 years at least, if not more. That's a very important aspect, and something that's important to the brand and that we want to support, and to have something that would have a different warranty. I think that would be, that you would get a lot of pushback internally. Okay,
so I'm going to ask you something I think is a huge ask. Is there a path forward to, now that you've got a car that actually sells, 2 of them really, the Sonata N line, and it seems like Europe has accepted these cars as well. Is there a path forward to have your version of an AMG GT, only an N car, meaning something that's more sexy looking?
I mean, it's always possible. We showed Envision 74 as a concept.
Stunning.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I would love that to happen. Believe me, I would love that to happen. But how realistic is that? Like, what kind of pushback will you get internally to make something like that?
I'm sure there's a lot of pushback for it. Once again, it's future product. It was a concept, but it's gotten a lot of attention. It's a rolling lab. I mean, it is used. It's drivable. It's it went up Goodwood.
I think if you were to bring that car out the way it looks, with a lot of power, not electrified, not hydrogen, none of that stuff, I'm thinking 400 to 500 horsepower, and make it 10% or more cheaper than the cheapest Corvette, I think you'd sell every one of them you'd build.
I'll pass that along.
Don't make the same mistake as the Z and the Supra. They priced them too close to the Vet. The only reason the Supra sells is because it has a manual transmission now. And it's sold because it came out in a virus and people just wanted cars. So I think they're on this like sugar high. Great car. It's a better, unpopular opinion, the Supra's a way better driving car than the new Z. But they both committed the same sin of being too close to the Corvette. And to think about it, if you can buy or lease...
Isn't that what happened in the 90s too with those cars as well? It's kind of the same thing.
Different story though. That was the market changed, insurance rates changed. But the kind of guy who can buy or finance a $70,000 Corvette is going to get a Corvette. He's not going to buy a Hyundai. But if you can stay 10% or more below it and have something maybe smaller, more nimble, manual transmission, 500 horsepower, I think it's doable. And you're telling me the secret is commonization of parts. That's what it sounds like. But you're also looking at me like I'm nuts right now. So this is the point of the episode. You've never been on the show before in front of the camera, even though you've been mentioned on the show for 10 years because I throw you under the bus for not giving me a sunroof. This is the point of the episode that we turn around to the audience and we look for some feedback from them. So finally, I got Mike on the show. This is the guy that makes cars like this happen inside of, what are you, the 5th largest car company at this point?
Third?
Excuse me, 3rd. I am sorry, sir. So a guy that can make this kind of stuff, affordable 300 horsepower sedans, come to life, what feedback do you want from these guys?
I think we're at a very pivotal time. It's a very much a transition as we're in the electrification age, and it's something we're going to look back on 10, 20 years from now, and look at these petrol ICE cars and kind of long form a little bit. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I mean, just be curious to know what does the future hold and what do you want to see in the future, whether it be ICE, electrification, or what. I'm going to tag on to that. I want you to be very specific about A, what you would want, and B, how much you would realistically pay for it. Don't put down, I would buy a 500 horsepower N74 for $25,000. That is not going to happen. But what specifically do you want? Manual brown diesel wagons.
Of course they would want that, but they could buy a Mercedes if they wanted to get that. They just wouldn't get the manual. What specifically do you want, and how much would you realistically pay for it? Obviously in your local currency based on where you are. But also, okay, how long do you think we have with cars like this? That I think is a big discussion. I think I am a bigger believer than you in cars like this. I think the reality has reared its ugly head on the progressives and their ideas of mandates from Brussels as well as Washington, and we're seeing that right now. And as a result, you're seeing companies like AMG saying, we're stepping back from the EV mandates and we're going to let the business dictate where we're going.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
where do you see it going? Let us know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV on Word, MotoManTV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you found this discussion fascinating, I would highly suggest you watch our interview with Till, who's not really your boss, but you work with him because he's the one that technically runs the N brand.
Yes, and motorsport.
He had the best answer as to why they put a transmission in an electric car. I'm not going to spoil it for them. They should go watch the interview.
Yep.
So you can see that interview here. Until I see you in the next episode. Bis später.